Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I am here today by gracious invitation of Polenar Tactical. And we are taking a look at a Singapore-manufactured, Slovenian-issued SAR80 rifle. That stands for Singapore Assault Rifle 1980. There are two different places that we have to go to really pull out the history on this rifle. And the first is the Sterling Company in England. Now, this rifle was actually designed by an employee of Sterling, a guy named Frank Waters. And, well, basically, the Sterling Company wanted to be marketing a .556 caliber military pattern rifle that was economical, cheap to manufacture, and something suitable to market to a lot of not top-tier militaries. Sterling was very interested in countries like, for example, the Southeast Asian markets, countries like Singapore. Now, Sterling would end up getting a license to manufacture the AR-18 rifle from Armalite, and for that reason, Sterling never put the SAR80 into production, or the prototype, the design that would become the SAR80. They never put it into production because they were able to make the AR-18 instead. However, in the late 1970s, Singapore, well, let's step back a bit. In 1965, the Republic of Singapore is formed as an independent country. In 1967, Chartered Industries of Singapore, CIS, is formed to do some domestic arms manufacture. Singapore wants to equip its own military. They start by buying a batch of like 3,500 M16s, but they want to manufacture something domestically just for basically the self-reliance factor. So they're looking for a design, and they approach Sterling about licensing some sort of design from Sterling. Well, Sterling wants to make money on this, so instead of selling them, well, Sterling can't sell them the rights to make the AR-18, but they can sell them the rights to make this. So in 1977, Waters and Sterling put together a few prototypes, send them off to CIS in Singapore for some testing. After a little bit of revision, the guns are accepted, and CIS starts production in 1978. The first customer for these guns is the Singapore Army. They take their first deliveries in 1981. And then CIS starts looking around for other export customers. And they don't find a lot, but they do find a few. These would include the Central African Republic, Croatia, Papua New Guinea, and Slovenia. In total, about a little over 80,000 of these rifles were manufactured for all of those various export clients put together. So let's take a closer look at this. It is essentially an AR-18 clone, just without some of the specific features that were still under patent by Armalite at the time. You can really see the Sterling legacy in this design, if nothing else, from the crackle paint finish on the receivers. That was a finish that was adopted at Sterling for the Sterling submachine guns that they found to be a cheap and durable and effective finish, and so that's what went on the SAR80. We have standard Stanag magazines, AR-15 pattern magazines. This is one of the mags that was originally issued with this particular rifle in Slovenia, and it is interesting to note that it, and the other ones, I have a couple others here, are all actually dual-purpose magazines, also cut with a slot for an AR-18. That paint finish makes it a little bit difficult to read the markings on the lower receiver here, but we have a serial number. This one's in the 38,000 range, caliber .556, and the designation of SAR80. And the only other markings here are the selector markings. Safe, semi, and auto. This rifle has been down converted to semi only to be legally owned here in Slovenia, so it's not actually automatic, but you can still see the marking on the receiver. In fact, if we look closely, this pinhole is now filled with a screw, and it's empty on the opposite side. That was originally the pinhole for the auto sear, which was removed as part of its semi-auto down conversion. Both fixed buttstocks like this one, plastic in this case, and also side-folding buttstocks were developed by Waters. Singapore decided to go with the fixed buttstock, and that's also what Slovenia got. We have a two-position rear aperture sight, one for long range, one for close range. Windage adjustment is done on the side here. The front sight is just a plain round post with a couple of big protective wings, and this can be threaded in or out to adjust elevation. We have a very basic birdcage flash hider on the front. This is sort of a bolt-on front sling swivel adapter. This is often missing. Nice to have it on this rifle. Bayonet lug, this takes a standard M16 pattern bayonet. There is a 4-position gas regulator. It has settings for 1, 2, and 3 for normal, more gas, and a lot more gas. And then it also has a 0 setting right there to turn it into a manual repeater, presumably for launching rifle grenades. Both the upper and the lower are made of stamped sheet steel. This is a very simple, economical gun to make. So for disassembly, we're going to start by pushing out the rear pin right there. That allows me to pivot open the lower receiver. I'll go ahead and pull out the front pin as well. Typically for disassembly, you wouldn't do this. You'd leave them connected just because it's simpler. In this case, it's easier to get one out of the way, so I can show you all the rest. The buttstock is held in place by this big screw onto the back of this stamped sheet metal lower. To your fire control group, this does have a last round bolt hold open right there. And you can see that the follower of the magazine lifts it right there. So that's how the bolt hold open engages. There is, however, no bolt release. So to release it, you simply have to pull the bolt handle back slightly and let it go forward once you have a loaded magazine in there. As I mentioned before, there would originally be an auto trip up front, but that has been removed as part of making this semi-auto. Big magazine release right there, but it works just like an M16 magazine release. Moving on to the upper, we have a rather clever but still pretty simple system to retain the recoil spring so it doesn't pop out when you disassemble the gun. That is this little spring-loaded button. I have to push that in, and that releases the recoil springs. So we have 2 parallel guide rods, 2 recoil springs there attached to this large plate. With the guide rails gone, I can just lift the handle out. When the guide rails are in place, they hold the bolt carrier down far enough that the edge of the handle can't come past the edge of the receiver. So some really simple, efficient engineering tricks that went into making this. There's our bolt carrier. This is a very simple, standard AR-18 style bolt and carrier. There's the cam pin. Back here you have the firing pin, retention pin. I'll leave this together. It's identical to an AR-18 bolt. If you want to see how that comes apart, check out my AR-18 video. Next up at the front end, the lower handguard is essentially permanently in place. It's held in place by the gas block. The upper handguard comes off by just pulling it backwards and lifting it up. It's held in place by 2 pins back here that are spring-loaded. So again, really easy to take off. Without it, the lower handguard rattles a bit, but you can only take this off by taking off the gas block. Underneath the handguard there, we have a Tokarev style gas system. This is basically exactly what was used on the AR-18. So it's a 3-piece gas system. So I can pull, there we go, I can pull the long piece off. Then we've got the actual piston head. And then we've got this, which is the adjustable gas block. So the gas port is right there in the bottom, connecting to the barrel. And then this has 1, 2, 3 increasingly large ports, and those line up when this is in the gun with your 1, 2, and 3 numbers. There are little notches here, and this locks in like so to the pin on the front sight / gas block. These holes are simply the vent holes. So once the gas piston has come back that far, any remaining gas pressure is vented out there instead of overpressuring the piston. The upper receiver is a really simple piece of sheet metal stamping. Just a couple little welded inserts in there to keep things lined up. This is just bent around and welded into the rear trunnion which houses the barrel. You got 3 holes up at the top here. The middle one is for the gas piston to come back through and push the bolt. The outer 2 are for the recoil spring guide rods. And there you go. There's the whole SAR80 field stripped. The one other really cool thing I have here that I want to show you is this, which is the original Slovenian magazine pouch for the rifle. So open this up, got a Velcro lid at the top, and inside we have storage for 4 of these AR-15/AR-18 magazines. All 4 of them have that dual purpose cut there. We then also have, if I can get it out, there we go, this really cheap plastic oiler bottle. This is some sort of, I mean, you can see the distortion in it there, but there's 2 compartments with little oil applicators, threaded thing at each end. And then the pouch itself has a shoulder strap, and it has a belt hook that you open by pulling down on this tab, pushing that tab over. That unlocks it, and you are strictly told not to bend this up more than 30 degrees or it will just snap off. The Slovenian military in the early mid-1990s did not exactly have a whole lot of money to throw around. But that is the original magazine pouch. Oh, there are 2 pockets here. To be honest, I'm not sure what was supposed to go in them. Chartered Industries of Singapore, CIS, is a neat, interesting company. They are also the company that produced the Ultimax light machine guns designed by James Sullivan with a constant recoil system. They had a lot of innovative development going on. In 1988, production of the SAR80 ended. It was replaced by the SAR88, a somewhat improved new pattern of rifle. Ultimately, for the Singapore Army, these were replaced by the SAR21, a particularly interesting bullpup rifle, which I also have a video on, so I'll link that at the end of this video. For Slovenia, these guns were used primarily by the territorial defense forces. Although they were never hugely popular, there weren't a ton of them here, although I don't have exact numbers, unfortunately. And into the 1990s, the majority of Slovenian armed forces continued to use Yugoslav M70 pattern AKs instead of these. Still, very interesting that this is one of the few export clients for the SAR80. It's a neat rifle, it's a very economical rifle. I will also point out that Bloke on the Range has a video entirely about the patents involved between this and the AR-18 as an interesting case study in how patents work and how patents affect gun design like this. So you should definitely check out that video if you'd like to know more of the nuance around how does one just copy a rifle or perhaps not copy a rifle. You can also, I've got all sorts of extra references here. You can also check out Bloke on the Range's videos from Lynx Brutality here in Slovenia, where Bloke brought another SAR80, not this one, but one of his own, and shot it in Lynx Brutality. So you can check out his experiences running it in the match. Hopefully this was an interesting video for you guys. Thanks for watching.